conference is being recorded. Q&A session started.
Hello and welcome. I'm Mary Beth at the Law of Attraction Club on the web at theloaclub.com. On these hangouts, we collaborate with our friends Tara. This hangout is the summary of our theme for the week and continues with Q&A on our member conference call. You can get invites to our open calls, which we offer about once a month, and our free letting go process by going to theloaclub.com. So right now, we welcome Robin and Tara.
Welcome to our discussion about what is perhaps the least understood of any topic within your creation, death and dying. It's also the topic about which most of the dominant religions in this one world, and probably also in yours, have a detailed story. And that story is usually a story of judgment and about rewards for those who are worthy and eternal damnation for those who are not. And many of those who tell these stories also tell you that they have it right, and anyone telling a different story has it wrong. So let's talk a little about death and beliefs and in stories, and in so doing we'll be talking once again about you and the way you create everything you experience. All those facts above about religions and how the world is and how various people behave is, of course, a story within a story, because it's all part of this one's story. Once again, yours may be similar. As we talk about and use examples from life on Earth, we often qualify our examples by saying they are from this one's world and yours may be similar. And that's because the truth of it is that there is no the world, there is only your world, which contains everything that matches your expectations of it and nothing that does not. Flat Earth or round Earth, it's your Earth. For this version of this one, it's a round Earth, because you are, in many respects, a match to him. It's probable that yours will be a round Earth also. And therefore the examples are useful because you can easily relate to them. But even as we use worldly examples, we want you to know that your world is within you. What you believe becomes your reality. What you disbelieve does not exist. If you know you can do or you can't do some particular thing, by definition, you're right. But it's not some sort of absolute truth about you. It's simply what you've chosen to believe. So let's explore these things called beliefs. And let's begin by looking at where they reside. In one step in our about face exercise, we ask you to visualize in your mind's eye the always connected nature of you by looking back along that connection from the here and now conscious and subconscious part of you through that larger being, that higher self part of you, right back to the source of everything, to all that is. These are not discrete parts, of course. There are no boundaries. You are a continuum. But just for now, let's think of them as different levels. At each level of you, the beliefs you hold define you at that level. At different levels, you have different beliefs. Is it possible to have beliefs at one level that are incompatible with beliefs at another level? Yes, indeed it is. We have often used the example of a difference between what you know subconsciously and what you know consciously. If you move something you use a lot, say your waste paper basket, you know consciously it's in the new location. If we asked you where it was, you could tell us. But what you know subconsciously is quite different, which you find out next time you go to use it, and you will going on finding out until over time you train your subconscious into knowing the new location. Does the sun rise every day in the east? Your conscious answer is yes. Your subconscious answer is yes. Your higher self knows this is part of your game and says, play on. Is your waste paper basket on the left or the right? Your conscious answer, if you just moved it there, on the right. Your subconscious answer is on the left where it was. Your higher self knows this is part of your game and says, play on. Are you going to get old and die? Your conscious answer is probably yes. Your subconscious answer is even more probably yes. Your higher self knows this as your now choice and says, it depends. Because at this level, you know that there's no such thing as death. There is only choice and change. Is there a world out there you have to deal with? Your conscious answer will be yes, no, or maybe. If you've been with us for a while, perhaps more no than yes. But your subconscious answer is more likely to be yes. Your higher self knows the true nature of who you are and is saying no, no, no. When you bump up against things in that world of yours and you struggle to take action to deal with them, you're out of alignment. And whenever you're out of alignment, you feel bad. Your feelings are always an infallible guide as to whether your beliefs at all levels are aligned or misaligned. That's why feeling good is so important. On the subject of death and dying, it's interesting to us that while many of you have grasped the storyless fundamentals of the law of attraction and learned to distinguish fact from fiction, what happens when you throw that switch and transition into a new realm often looms as a big mystery to you. You've settled into the idea that the law of attraction is something that applies while you're alive, but that when you die, new rules apply. But it is not so. The rules that apply now are the same rules that will apply then. They are eternal rules, and they are the same rules for us as they are for you, and for your higher self, and for everything that exists. Let's look at some different perspectives from our friends. From Bentinho Massaro. If you allow for the reality of being a larger being consciousness, out of which your current physical experience has emerged as a temporary extension, like fingers are to a hand, to explore a certain theme, a certain angle of reality that needed exactly the combinations of qualities, skills, difficulties, circumstances, and body that you now seem to be or possess, it literally connects you to that deeper part of yourself, and it changes the fear of death. This exploration that Bentinho described is taking place on a stage created by those choices of yours. And the props on that stage are the various qualities, skills, difficulties, and circumstances, and the physical body that he refers to. All of it is your story. And if you are the author of the story, can you see that when the story is finished, you still exist, and you make new choices, and a new story, a new adventure begins. There is nothing to fear. From Abraham. We are very much wanting you to put this death thing in the proper perspective. You are all going to die, except there is no death. You're all going to make your transition into non-physical. It's time to stop making it sound like a subject that is uncomfortable and begin acknowledging that it's something that happens to everyone. This death thing is so misunderstood that you use it to torture yourself never-endingly and just absolutely unnecessarily. Death is a matter of closing one's eyes in this dimension and literally opening one's eyes in the other dimension. And that, truly, is how all death is. No matter how it looks, up to that point, Re-emergence into source energy is always a delightful thing. This one remains in deep appreciation of Abraham through Esther. In his world, they provided the first clear and comprehensive articulation of the law of attraction. With this topic of death, as they do with most subjects, they come at things from a very earth-centric perspective. And since most of you are also understandably coming at this very much from that same worldly perspective, the message is simple and relevant. However, it is our particular intent to not just promise you that things will be positive, but to have you understand even more fully that, dead or alive, the timeless rules that govern all of our existences in all of our different realms are exactly the same. You are the one who chooses what, when, and how everything will be, including your transition. So once again, let's briefly review those things you are not at choice about, the absolutes, and what you can do and do choose, which is everything else. Absolute number one. You're a timeless, always connected extension of the collective consciousness of all that is. There is no hierarchy. You are not less than any other part of that collective. You just are. Absolute number two. To the degree that you are individuated, you are defined by, created by your choices. Those choices result in experiences, which lead to new desires and intentions, and so the cycle continues. With each new choice, you inhabit a new version of you, and by what you call the law of attraction, a matching, ever-present context appears around you. The succession of choices you have made has led you to where you find yourself now. You have created your own personal virtual reality of being a physical human in a physical world. Everything about you and that world stems from your choices. You can recreate any of it at any time by making a new choice. This is your story. This is your adventure. This is unique to you. The absolutes, however, apply to all things at all times. For example, clearly there are some differences between you and us. We are more in the realm of your higher self. Ours is a non-physical perspective, and what we offer here in these intersections comes from having that different perspective. But the rules for us are the same as the rules for you. We are an individuated consciousness just as you are. We are created out of our intentions. We have attracted you into our context, even as you have attracted us into yours. We are not more elevated or divine than you are. We are all that choice in all things at all times. What we choose determines what we expect. What we expect becomes our context. Can you see, therefore, that this whole cycle of life in which you find yourself is what you have chosen to believe in? Most of you have decided that your story includes an aging process, which inevitably leads to death. Now, once again, we are not trying to talk you out of your story. It is yours, and it is magnificent. And we are in deep appreciation of who you are out there, as we call it, playing on the leading edge of creation, experiencing things from this narrow and strongly focused perspective. But when you really get down to it, can you see that you will only die because you have chosen to believe that you will? You expect to die. So let us assume for the present here that you continue with that choice and you die. What happens next? Once again, can you see that the rules remain unchanged? The absolutes are still absolute, and what you experience will be what you expect to experience. You might say you don't have any expectations of death, but you do. You may have set very wide boundaries by leaving much of it undecided. But many of you are expecting a dramatic change, and so there will be a dramatic change. At a minimum, you will have stepped outside the focus of your space-time world. Here's how a friend Bashar describes it. You are afraid in general of the idea of death because you think it's the end of your identity. But actually, it's actually the expansion into more of yourself. You become more of who you are in death. Physical reality, in a sense, is more like death than death is, because you place so many limitations on yourself. Most individuals on your planet will experience it as if they're waking up from a dream. You wake up and suddenly remember who you are, and that you are having this physical dream. The overwhelming feeling is that you're actually waking up into your true reality. And the idea of physical reality becomes to some degree a secondary concern that isn't as real. We like very much this analogy of waking up. When you sleep, the physical you and the physical world cease to exist. Even if you just close your eyes, the visual version of the world ceases to exist. That wall behind you right now doesn't exist visually until you turn around and cause it to appear, because it's no more of a reality than the movie you watch on television. And as you change channels, you stop one story and start another one. We've suggested recently that you can think of your whole life as being just today, as beginning when you woke up this morning, with a backstory, of course, that you choose to see as your past, and ending when you go to sleep tonight. Thinking of life in that equally valid way is an interesting exercise, and we recommend it because it can help open you up to some of the concepts we are discussing here. The bottom line is your perspective will change. Your priorities will change. Things you used to see as important will potentially be replaced by new and even more engaging ideas. The virtual reality that was your world will not be in your face and holding your attention. It will be, as Bashar describes it, not as real as your new realm, and therefore you will recognize that it no longer exists. Because, just like that dream of yours, it never did. You could choose to rejoin it and continue creating it as your context. Or you might choose to shift back to the level of your higher self. Or you might choose to merge with us and play from our perspective. As always, there is nothing you cannot be, do, or have, nothing you cannot change. You will be the one who continues to decide. Just remember that unless you choose to create the semblance of it, there is nothing fundamental that is bad or evil. There is no judgment and there is no purgatory. There is just you with a new perspective making new choices. You can and will experience even more profoundly that you can step into a place of peace and power and fun and freedom. You will have instantly become more aware of the essential and timeless nature of who you are. So, we have explored the concept of death, not just to allay any fears you might have had, because it serves as a vehicle to know about life. You can conquer death, and even more importantly, you can conquer life by which we mean you can learn to create new and wondrous things. You can choose what you want now, and you can consciously move it up the bucket line from impossible to improbable, to possible, to probable, and then on to certain. And what that process involves is retraining your subconscious at each step along the way. It means getting your higher self and your subconscious and your conscious self all marching in lockstep, all singing the same song in three-part harmony. And of course, we will be with you each step of the way, joining you at choir practice and enjoying the endless performances. For us, it doesn't get any better than that.
This Hangout on Air was the summary of our theme for the week. We do 3 live calls a week with Q&A for our members on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You too can become a member by going to theloaclub.com/join. Our longer discussion with Q&A continues now on our member line. So back over to you, Robin and to Ra.